Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks. Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Continuing Education, Bachelor's Degree Program, Elective Course, Gender Studies, BGSE-001 Gender Sensitization, Society, Culture and Change, Block 6 Gender Representation and Media Unit 17 Gender and Language. 17.1 Introduction. We shall begin this unit with a small story. A professor at a university in America gave an interesting exercise to his students to make a list of words that they could think of fast. It was a mixed class of male and female students. The results showed that male students listed words denoting travel, adventure, sports, business, economics, politics, and outdoor life. In brief, their preference was for the abstract. While the women candidates preferred words for beauty, colors, fragrance, friendship, food items, and domestic life, in brief, they were inclined towards the concrete and the ornamental. This simple exercise speaks volumes for the difference in the usage of language by men and women. Looking around, you too may have noticed that men and women use language differently while communicating. That is to say, their preference for words, emphasis, pronunciations, and intonations are markedly different. Have you ever wondered why? Just because of gender difference. Or take another example. You may have heard someone saying to a female colleague, "Oh, Tanu, you should have been more assertive to get your point home." Obviously, Tanu lacks assertiveness. Why? Because she has been brought up that way. This brings us to our topic, gender and language. Let us study in this unit how the relation between the two, gender and language, works in life and literature. How gender influences language, and how language emerges as gender specific. Let us have a look at objectives of reading this unit. 17.2 Objectives. After reading this unit, you will be able to times define the concepts of sex and gender. Times describe gender differences in language use. Times demonstrate the relationship between gender and language. Times analyze gender boundaries and social expectations to use language as per sociocultural norms, and times distinguish masculine and feminine traits and analysis of the causes of the difference. 17.3 Gendering the language. We begin on the premise that the study of gender is important to the study of language. It makes us realize the difference in communication process and its impact on social behavior of men and women. Language is used for communication, oral as well as written. In its oral form, it is used for conversation and dialogue. In its written form, it is used for reading and writing. Men and women both use language to communicate. But though they may be speaking the same language, its pattern changes according to the gender of the speaker-writer. Take a simple sentence, "Close the door." A man will say more directly, "Close the door, please," while a woman may say, "Will you please close the door?" The first sentence shows assertion and authority of the speaker. The second, though more polite, denotes hesitation and lack of authority. Such differences in the use of phrases, vocabulary, intonation, and nonverbal communication are due to factors like physical, psychological, economic, and social differences in the approach of men and women. Gender issues and language issues are interconnected. Since the time women's movement started debating the power of the language, gender studies and language studies have become important interdisciplinary academic fields. Language reflects existing social reality. Sociolinguistic and feminist scholars are examining how language upholds, supports, or devalues women, how it shapes the social and cultural contexts, and how it is shaped by these contexts, and what measures can be taken to change the social perception of gender. To understand the role language plays in gender studies, we must first understand the meaning of some of the key terms like sex and gender. 17.4 Sex versus gender. Let us learn what is sex and what is gender. 17th April 2001 Sex and gender. We generally associate the term sex with the biological self. Gender is a sociocultural construct. This means that the process of social training starts after birth as the family takes charge of bringing it up. A boy or a girl is brought up according to the sociocultural norms of his/her society, and with the passage of time, he/she acquires traits that are expected of a man or a woman of that group. Thus, the idea of gender can change with social changes, though sex remains the same. Do you know what the feminist writer Simone de Beauvoir said? She wrote, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." We take a few examples to understand the meaning of this sentence. As soon as a child is born, we ask boy or girl. We do not refer to the gender of the newborn, we refer to its sex. We do not say what is its gender. That would be incorrect. Later, the child acquires the traits of a girl or a boy and starts behaving accordingly. This is because of training in social and cultural norms. 17th April 2002 Sociocultural training. The child starts growing. We train him/her as per our social outlook. Parents buy dolls and frocks for girls, cars and guns for boys. Then there are many do's and don'ts that elders start imposing. We expect the male child to be strong and brave. We cuddle the little girl. Slowly, the idea of gender takes root. Boys tend to become naughty, rowdy, and aggressive. We let them be. A popular phrase in English is boys will be boys. We expect the girls to be docile, gentle, and obedient. We unknowingly create two categories, girl and boy, man and woman. Boundaries are formed. These are gender boundaries. 17.5 Some terms to be understood. In this section, you will read about a few terms that needs to be clarified before we go ahead in this unit. Some of these terms you have read in earlier units also, but they are being dealt with again to refresh your memory. 17th May 2001 Gender boundaries. These boundaries are related to ideas, they are not physical or geographical. So they are called conceptual. They can change with times, e.g. A few decades back, girls in India did not wear pants or jeans, now they do. Men wearing earrings is perfectly acceptable today. Likewise, women are getting higher education today. Was it acceptable 100 years back? No. So, gender boundaries can and do change with time. 17th May 2002 Gender identity. Gender identity is a person's inner sense of being male or female. It is developed in childhood. It also refers to markers like voice, physique, dress, hairstyle, behavior, and language use. 17th May 2003 Gender stereotype. These are widely held beliefs about the abilities, characteristics, and social behavior of girls and boys, men and women, such as women have to be pretty, delicate, and so on. Men have to be dominant and powerful. 17th May 2004 Gender ideology. It is defined as a set of attitudes and values about the proper role of women and men in the family or society. For example, a man must be competitive or aggressive, woman must be patient and tolerant is a gender ideology. 17.6 Male and female traits. Following are traits we see in men. Times physical, physically men are rugged, strong, aggressive. Times psychological, psychologically they are rational, analytical, and problem solving. Times personality. Their personality is daring and they tend to be dominant. Consequently, men's use of language generally shows aggressiveness, dominance, and authority. Let us read what are female traits. Times physical. Physically, women are small, petite, and gorgeous. Times psychologically, they are more imaginative, intuitive, and artistic. Times personality. Sympathy, affection, and kindness mark their personality. Their focus is on community and on others. Consequently, their language shows conciliation, docility, and unassertiveness. 17.7 Male-female difference in the use of language. Language is used by both men and women, but somewhere in its course of development it gets divided, unknowingly, between two parts, male and female. As per social and cultural norms, language mirrors, records, and transmits differences. These gender differences can be marked in various ways. Men and women are socialized to express themselves in appropriate social language that teaches and reinforces differentiated gender roles. Following three questions can lead us to clarify our point. 1. Do men and women speak different languages? The answer is no and yes. No, because it is the same language they speak. In this case, let us say English. Yes, because their phrases, expressions, and intonations are so different that they appear to be speaking different languages. 2. Do they use language differently? Yes. Otto Jesperson, in his book Language, Its Nature, Development, and Origin observes that men have many expressions peculiar to them which women understand but do not use. On the other hand, women have words and phrases which men know of but never use for fear of being scorned at. That is the reason the language of men and women appears different. 3. Is there gender bias in English language? Yes. This bias is obvious in the manner in which language uses women. Women are ignored when words such as he or man signify women too. For example, everyone must do his duty. Here the pronoun his denotes woman also. Man is mortal. In this sentence man also means woman. In both these sentences her presence is ignored. These are known as masculine generics and are widely accepted. Language also defines women's status vis-a-vis men's and by inference gives them secondary position. Let us look at the titles of respect, Mrs. or Miss. These terms show the presence-absence of man in a woman's life, whereas the appellation MR is independent and does not need woman's presence. Feminine nouns of some words are derogatory, like dog bitch, wizard witch. Similarly, words like lady doctor, lady lecturer specify gender unnecessarily. Terms of endearment used by men for women like chick or babe highlight how language devalues women. Have you read Henrik Ibsen's play A Doll's House? In it, a reader comes across many terms of endearment that Nora's husband uses for her to show his love. Gender and language. 17.8 Is language sexist? Sexist language is a language which excludes women and considers men as the norm. It shows gender bias, as explained above. For example, the sentence each student must write his name on the paper leads the reader to assume that all students are males. The presence of female students is not considered. This exclusion is devaluing, it encourages discrimination, and is also offending. Before reading further, take up the following exercise. Check your progress. Exercise 1. Fill in the blanks. I. Gender is a construct. Sex is a term. 2. Said, one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. 3. Main style of speaking can be, while woman's style is Use one word each at appropriate place, aggressive. Impolite, polite, irrational. 4. Language as such is dominated. We use for a good-looking man and for a good-looking woman. Use adjectives. 2. Write a short note on language bias, about 20 words. In the following section, you will read about factors that influence use of language by men and women. 17.9 Factors influencing language. Now we will look into the factors influencing language. 17 September 2001 Biological factors. The biological factor can be studies from three angles: voice, phonology, and intonation. Voice. Women have a thin voice as compared to men's gruff voice, and their voice frequency is almost twice as high as that of men. Psychologists say that speaking in high-pitched voice is their physical limitation, but socially it is associated with their timidity. Intonations. There are two types of basic intonations: rising intonation and falling intonation. Women usually answer a question with rising intonation, which suggests their docility and gentleness, besides lack of self-confidence. Phonology. Pronunciation comes under phonology. Women pronounce words in a better manner than men do. For example, women pronounce the letter R softly, as in chair, which sounds like chaise. In English, the ending ing, as in running, walking, writing, is pronounced fully by women, while men miss the last g and pronounce these words as running, walking. Women's pronunciation denotes use of proper formal language, compliance to accepted social expectations, and politeness. Men's pronunciations suggest their assertion and informality. The above example drawn from the situation of language use is in the American context. 17 September 2002 Cultural factors. Culture is a dominant factor in maintaining language identity. Culture is a blanket term. Within it, several diverse groups live and operate, which are called subcultures. There is a subculture of men and also subculture of women. Men and women belong to their respective subcultures, and these subcultures mold their behavior pattern, language use, and conduct. As per the expectations of their subculture, women use language that is not aggressive or adventurous. In larger groups, they remain silent, but speak in smaller groups. Their conversation aims to build friendship, loyalty, equality, and such other traits. They usually speak of simple domestic or personal matters, which men consider ridiculous. On the contrary, men choose to work in larger groups. They want power, control, and status. They like to compete and win, and they dominate the conversation. These cultural differences in the male and female groups lead to the different ways in which they converse. 17 September 2003 Examples from literature. Two examples from literature would illustrate the above points. In William Golding's novel Lord of the Flies, we get a fine example of how boys can be aggressive for power. Their language and games drive them unwittingly to frenzy and murder. In To Kill a Mockingbird, the girl protagonists Aunt always upbraids her to speak proper ladylike language and criticize her for tomboyish activities. 17 September 2004 Power and Domination Factor. In the patriarchal system, women are seen to be in a subordinate position. The male members of the society use patronizing language when conversing with them. This is called male language, which is the language of power and authority. Therefore, interaction between the males and the females has always been male-dominated. Language also shows social inequality. Women's speech is considered unimportant, therefore, they use linguistic forms that are associated with their low status. These forms included tag questions, intonation, hedges, politeness strategies, and others. Conversely, Main speech becomes a tool of patriarchal power through gender role training. They learn to dominate the conversation through interruption and crosstalk. 17.10 Gender difference in vocabulary. Men use hard and aggressive expressions like damn, shit to express anger or frustration. Women would never use these tabooed words that are rated as slang. They usually go for harmless expressions like OA. Tabooed words and slang are found more in men's speech than in women's, though they may be of same educational level or social class. For example, when a woman is frightened, she will shout, "Oh, how frightened I am." But a man would only say, "Damn it," and rarely admit that he is frightened. The difference in vocabulary is shown in the following 5 aspects. I. Color words. Women use color words like blue and lavender and azure more frequently, but men would not. 2. Adjectives. Women use adjectives such as adorable, charming, lovely more often. When a woman leaves a restaurant, she will remark, "It is a nice meal." If a man wants to express the same idea, he will use the word good. Using more adjectives to express their feelings or to describe things is because women are sensitive to the environment. 3. Adverbs. Women tend to use adverbs like pretty, terribly, vastly, quietly, etc. more freely than men do. Men, on the contrary, use really, very, utterly. In 1992, Jesperson found that women like to use so quite regularly. Like she is so pretty or the play was so interesting. 4. Swear words and expletives. Swear words are considered dirty and impolite, and women do not use these like damn, shit, hell. Women pay more attention to their manners and social propriety. In order to express their sudden and deep feelings, they may say, "Oh God," "Oh dear," or "Dear me." Let us examine the following example. Woman, "Dear me. Are we going to be late again?" Man, "Shit. The train is on the platform and we have to run." We, modulation. When a woman talks, she often takes what others think into consideration. She uses tag questions such as, "It is cold, isn't it?" and hedges like, "Well, you know. I think. I suppose. Kind of. Maybe I am wrong. But." 17.11 Interrogative sentences. Compared with men, women are more likely to use an interrogative sentence to express their ideas, and they use tag questions because the tag questions can make the tone less tense. Some linguists researching in this area collected many couples' conversation tapes and found that women used 3 times more interrogative sentences than men. Women do this because they are less sure about themselves and their opinions. They lack the confidence to use direct and firm statements. On the other hand, this style shows politeness and gentleness. 17.12 Imperative sentences. Imperative sentences give command or order. Since women hold a subordinate position in the patriarchal society, they are trained to not to order about. A study showed that in conversation women use the letters pattern of sentence, such as "Let's go out for a long drive." A boy man may say it directly, "Today we are going for a long drive." This sentence has the sense of giving order. Some other examples are: Man, give me that pen. Women, would you give me that pen, please? Man, it's time to go. Woman, let's go. 17.13 Difference in attitude toward language. Language is constantly changing. It evolves. It grows. Both men and women have helped in the development of language, but their approaches have been different. Women instinctively shrink from gross and rough expressions. They prefer refined and indirect expressions, whereas men use direct and often coarse expressions. Men find women's language too delicate and feel that if this style is adopted, the language will become weak and insipid. It will lose its vividness and strength. Men renovate the language by adding new words. In the beginning, these words may appear slang, but later they are accepted into the main language. On the other hand, women are conservative by nature and they prefer to use traditional language. Thus, they help in preserving old language. It may look comical today, but it is a fact that women used to avoid words like vulgar, indecent in their routine conversation. They preferred to use common for vulgar and would break halfway through a sentence if they were supposed to use the word indecent, like this book is a little. H. Isn't it? 17.14 Difference in nonverbal language. We can see that women do not like to patronize any conversation or discussion, they like to listen and then reply. Men, on the other hand, interrupt others' talk. Men do not like to be silent in conversation discussion. When a conversation involves both sexes, women are at the receiving end. They play the role of patient listeners. 17.15 Difference in choosing topics. In social interaction, men and women have different interests in choosing their topics. Men are more likely to discuss politics, sports, economics, and current news. Women prefer cooking, domestic chores, clothes, fashion, children, etc. Women talk more in informal situations, but they play a secondary role in the formal meetings. They speak less. 17.16 Reasons behind these differences. Biological difference between the two sexes cannot explain the reasons behind the different ways of communication. But gender difference plays a great role in creating these differences. The causes behind the difference can be understood as under 17.16.1 Different psychology. It is an accepted idea that women are more careful, sensitive, and considerate than men. Before a woman speaks, she usually thinks of the effect her words may have on the listener, so she often appears to be hesitant or more polite. On the contrary, men are rash. They do not bother much for public opinion, and they just say what they want to say and seldom care what others think. So man's speech is usually blunt and solid. 17.16 To different social status. Of the social causes of gender differences in speech style, one of the most significant is level of education. Studies show that the greater difference in the educational level of boys and girls, the greater is the difference in their speech. The gap between men's speech and women's speech has reduced considerably with improved and equal educational opportunities for girls. But even then, women display care and caution in the appropriate use of language. 17.16.3 Different social roles. Language use also depends on the social roles of men and women. Linguistic studies carried out in the 1970 reveal that in almost all countries men hold higher job positions that give them opportunities to dominate everything, including women. Men can order about freely, while women are not so confident of giving order even when they hold higher position today. Women have had very less power in the society, and this lack is obvious in their language. Women's social status makes them submissive to men. 17.17 Summing UP. In this unit, our focus has been on gender and language and how each influences the other. This lesson prepares us to understand the sociocultural side of gender and paves the way for gender study. We have studied following aspects. Language has a great connection with society, so if change in social structure takes place, language use will also change. The male language and the female language are different in emphasis, vocabulary, and presentation. We have studied the difference as well as the reasons for it. With the development of new ideas and feminist theories, the strict rules governing women are changing in many parts of the world. Rules prescribed for men and women are also changing. Consequently, women do not consider it wrong to assert themselves, and men too are comfortable to let women have their say. Women are becoming more confident and assertive. Young women are especially in the forefront of language change. Since people's linguistic behavior is not only connected with social status, but it is also connected with their education and profession, young women getting into high paid jobs are finding it perfectly acceptable to use language freely. 17.18 Keywords. Interrogative sentences. Interrogative sentences are one which asks questions. Imperative sentences. Imperative sentences give advice or instruction or expresses request or command. 17.20 Unit N questions. 1. Write short notes on gender identity. 2. Gender stereotype in 20 words each. 2. What are the cultural factors responsible for gender-specific language? 3. Who could have spoken these lines? Tick mark the correct word. Let's get some coffee en route, man woman. 2. Give me that pen, man woman. 3. Damn it. I misplaced my spectacles again. Husband wife. 4. Could you please lend me your umbrella? Man woman. Dear me. Look at the child jumping from that wall, man woman. 4. List the possible topics that men would choose for debate discussion out of the following: cooking, fashion, sports, politics, economics, weather, boss. Thank you. We will see you.